Godzilla. Gojira. Godzilla? Shortly after World War II, the threat of atomic annihilation was still fresh in the Japanese minds. They created Gojira, which is the personification of that said nuclear threat.
He was an evil creature?
Well, yes and no. He started out as an evil creature. However, as the show progressed, people started to get a feel for Godzilla because he was the king of the monsters and he was, fighting these other monsters. And so he kind of went from villain to folk hero, and Godzilla's mentality changed along the way, geared more towards kids in that sense. So he's got to be friendly, if not still destructive and terrifying, more anti-heroish than villain.
Like Deadpool. So you're telling me you started to fight other monsters. What other monsters are you talking about?
There's
Skeletor,
No, not Skeletor. A lot of the other monsters were pulled from various design elephants, so elephants.
Design elephants?
Design elephants. For example, Monster Zero, King Ghidorah. If you don't know who that is, he's a giant three-headed golden dragon that's kind of Godzilla's arch nemesis, his rival. Is based off the Slavic dragon, which is a Russian mythological dragon. It's got 3 heads or more. Not all the other giant monsters are bad though. Some of them can be seen as a counter to Godzilla when he was evil, like Mothra. Mothra is a giant moth, and 2 little girls usually summon her, and she flies around and fights Godzilla. But Mothra is actually
they summoned him. Like what do you mean?
Another kind of weird character in Godzilla was Jet Jaguar. He's like a robot that can change size, and then there's
Jet Jaguar. When did this come about? Was this like the 80s? It sounds like an 80s.
That sounds like an 80s porn star name. Jet Jaguar. You know what I mean? No, he's a giant fighting robot. He can shrink or grow in size. But Godzilla vs. Megalon featured 2 new monsters, Megalon and Gigan. Jet Jaguar teams up with Godzilla, and they have one of the most ridiculous fight scenes in that, where they pretty much just suspend the costume Godzilla on wires and have him dual drop kick. Jet Jaguar is holding back Megalon, and he's like, "Come on, hit him!" And Godzilla runs up, and then
so they tag team this other
monster. So if you're into wrestling, go watch that one. It's funny. It's super funny, and the humor also became apparent in that. It changed, from being the serious, piece on the threats of nuclear weapons and whatnot to, kids. Oh man, Godzilla! We love him. He's this cool anti-hero we can look up to.
So where do you think the franchise is going now with that new movie that starred Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and the weird incestuous relationship?
Ew.
Yeah, it turned me off.
The minute I walked into the IMAX theater with you guys and they actually added that roar. As a kid, hearing that roar was usually the good sign, like, oh man, something cool's gonna happen. The exact same feeling kicked into me again. Now, I personally liked the movie. Giving him back his trademark breath weapon, the atomic breath, was actually probably the highlight of that film, because in the Roland Emmerich movie, which is the only other American Godzilla we got, he doesn't do any of that. He's more of a giant iguana.
So what's like the fandom surrounding Godzilla?
Well, there's kind of like 2 fandoms. There's like a Japanese fandom and American fandom. The Japanese fandom, I would say, is a bit more tied to the franchise, since Godzilla's kind of the part of the culture in a way. Japanese culture, isolated on this island, they created so many cool and interesting things, which is why I love their horror. It's so abstract and weird. And Godzilla kind of was birthed by like kaiju, giant, strange monster. So it's part of their culture in a way, because this is kind of how, they created something. They took the dinosaur aspect and made it weird, and then they added that whole nuclear presence to there. With Americans, I see a much more of a, destruction and monsters fighting. So, but I think, they'll start to come together over time. To me, Godzilla was always like this cool folk hero. I remember in elementary school, we started up a little fan club for him, and my friend John Maitland brought in this huge, thick book of like all these Godzilla monsters. regardless, when you're a kid watching Godzilla on the TV, man, you're just, I was ecstatic. That was like my imagination come to life.
But why should I get into Godzilla? Like, how would you sell this to a casual observer?
What you could probably help compare it to is like a superhero. Right now we're seeing all these superhero movies being made, and a lot of comics are kind of coming back into style, right? Mm-hmm. So try and think of Godzilla as watching this whole series as the evolution of this hero, almost, this superhero.